On Global TV News Express, Vice President Shettima visits Kwara after deadly attack. In business, Central Bank of Nigeria injects over 1 trillion naira liquidity via cumulative repayments. On the foreign scene, 31 killed, 169 injured in Pakistan mosque blast. And in sports, President Tinubu unveils major sports sector reform, orders funding reset from 2026. Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Express on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Shehu Said. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 on StarTimes channel 276. Vice President Kashim Shettima has arrived in Ilorin, the Kwara state capital, to condole with the government and people of the state over the deadly attack on Woro community in Kayama local government area, where dozens were killed and properties destroyed. He was received at the airport by Governor Abdurrahman Abdulrazak, top government officials, security chiefs, and party leaders, alongside members of the National Assembly and state legislature. The visit comes amidst heightened security operations and curfews in affected areas, with the governor describing the attack as genocidal and vowing that the perpetrators will be flushed out within 1 month. Meanwhile, the 183 worshippers abducted from the Kuruminwali community in Kajuru local government area of Kaduna State have regained their freedom 18 days after they were kidnapped by bandits during a church service on January 18. The victims were received by Governor Ubasani at the Sir Kashim Ibrahim House in Kaduna. Zahrau Nasir has the details.
Receiving the worshippers alongside heads of security agencies, top Kaduna state government officials, and community leaders, the governor described the occasion as a day of joy for the state. He said the safe return of all the abducted worshippers vindicated the quiet but relentless efforts of the state government and the security agencies. Governor Ubasani described the kidnapping as a shock, particularly after what he had been over 2 years of sustained peace resulting from close collaboration between the Kaduna state government and security agencies to protect lives and property.
I'm happy to announce that all of them have been certified medically fit and they have all returned home and they are at home now.
He explained that following the incident on January 18, the state government immediately mobilized all relevant security formations and stakeholders with a single objective: to ensure the safe return of every victim. The governor commended President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whom he said personally monitored developments from the first day, repeatedly calling to express concern and provide leadership support.
172 out of them, as you are aware, about 83 were the people that returned about 3 days ago, and 89 were the ones that were rescued only yesterday or early morning of today.
Governor Sani further lauded the Director General of the Department of State Services, Oluwatoshin Ajayi, the Nigerian Army, the police, and other security agencies for what he described as exceptional collaboration throughout the operation. Zahra Nasir, reporting for Global TV.
To health matters now, the Joint Health Sector Unions, JOHESU, has suspended its nationwide strike after 84 days following a conciliation meeting with the federal government in Abuja. JOHESU says it took the decision after reviewing the terms of settlement reached with government, allowing time for the implementation of agreed resolutions. The strike had paralyzed services in public hospitals nationwide, leaving patients stranded and triggering widespread concern across the health sector. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Cancer Society says the country is witnessing an increase in cancer cases among young people, with children as young as 12 years old now being diagnosed with the disease. President of the Nigeria Cancer Society, Professor Abidemi Omonisi, revealed this in an exclusive interview with Global Television. Again, Zahra Nasir reports.
Professor Abidemi Omonisi stated that the reviewed data from cancer registries across the country shows an increase of colorectal cancer among teenagers, which is usually common in adults. Omonisi further mentioned that blood and breast cancers are on the rise among young people, decrying the lack of attention to blood cancers and survivors of the condition.
Younger population are coming down with cancer, particularly cancer of the colon and cancer of the breast. Many years ago, about 10 years ago, somebody have cancer, you can almost predict the age that fellow will be 50 and above. But the situation now have really changed because we have 25, 30, even 12, year-old lady having breast cancer. The answer to that is that the younger ones are more exposed to, they are getting more exposed to environmental factors. But anytime you see cancer in the young, most likely it's primarily driven by genetics.
The president disclosed that more than 30 states across the country have no cancer control plans, leaving millions of Nigerians without access to diagnostic facilities or treatment centers.
So again, you also need to have a plan, cancer control plan. Just yesterday, the Honorable Minister of State for Health launched the 2026 to 2030 National Cancer Control Plan. So we are part of the committee that actually drafted that plan, and also part of that review the plan. So we're part of cancer policy. In fact, there is no cancer policy in Nigeria, and the Nigerian Cancer Society is not part of the drafting. Of course, us as cancer advocates, advocacy is very important. We do a lot of community advocacy. That's why you see every World Cancer Day, you see our people all over the state, like yesterday, all over Nigeria. All the states in Nigeria, you see people, doing cancer work and creating awareness.
He appealed to the federal government to double effort in supporting cancer survivors across the country, as they are still on medication and the drugs imported to the country are expensive. Zahra Nasir, reporting for Global TV.
Chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Joash Amopitan, has urged security agencies to be alert on ballot snatchers, vote buyers, and other electoral law violators ahead of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT area council elections, and forthcoming polls across the country. He gave the charge in Abuja at the first regular meeting of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. Sadia Yakubu was there for Global TV News.
Chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Josh Amopitan, urged security agencies to ensure strict enforcement of the law, prevent the misuse of thugs, curb vote buying, as well as guarantee the safety of voters and election personnel on election day. He added that effective enforcement and swift response is critical in safeguarding the electoral process.
As campaigns draw to a close on Thursday, 19 February 2026, we look to the security agencies to ensure strict enforcement of the law, prevent misuse of thugs, prevent the use of thugs, curb vote buying, and guarantee the safety of voters.
Representing the National Security Advisor and ICCES co-chair Hassan Abdullahi says the security agencies is mobilizing resources and implementing measures to prevent any actions that could disrupt the electoral process. He noted that adequate security personnel will be deployed to police stations and high-risk electoral wards in order to restrain political thugs before, during and after the elections.
The Nigerian Police Force is designated as the lead agency for election security in collaboration with other security and law enforcement agencies, is actively mobilizing resources and implementing measures to prevent any action that could disrupt the electoral process.
The Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, who was represented by the Anambra State Commissioner of Police, Abayomi Shogunle, reiterated the police commitment to provide adequate security during and after the election.
The Nigerian Police Force will continue to deploy massively for all elections across the country, and the purpose of this is to ensure that elections are violence-free and peaceful.
INEC and security agencies are sending a strong warning to anyone planning to disrupt the polls. Electoral laws will be enforced and offenders will be held accountable. With heightened security measures in place, authorities are vowing a safe, credible and transparent voting process. From Abuja, Sadia Yakubu for Global Television.
Chapter in policing has opened in Imo State as new Commissioner of Police Audu Boso officially assumes duty after taking over from Aboki Danjuma, vowing to deepen community partnership, enforce discipline within the force, and protect lives and property across the state. Our correspondent Amaraj Ibe reports.
At the Imo State Police Command Headquarters in Owerri, the mantle of leadership formally changed hands as CP Audu Garba Bose takes over as the 42nd Commissioner of Police in the state. Addressing officers and stakeholders at a brief assumption of office ceremony, the new police chief expresses appreciation to the Inspector General of Police for the confidence reposed in him to oversee security operations in Imo State. He also acknowledges the Police Service Commission for the appointment and commends his predecessor for laying a foundation upon which improved security architecture can be built. CP Bose assures residents that the protection of lives and properties remains non-negotiable, stressing that effective policing can only thrive through trust, cooperation, and active community engagement.
The safety and security of Imolites remain my foremost priority. I call on security agencies, stakeholders, and all other Imolites to work together in tackling crimes and social vices. My administration will be guided by community-based policing, intelligence-led operations, and a people-friendly approach, ensuring that all actions strictly adhere to the rules of law and respect human rights.
The Commissioner calls on traditional rulers, community leaders, youth groups, and sister security agencies to work closely with the police in confronting crime and other security vices threatening public peace. He also charges area commanders, divisional police officers, and tactical units to remain professional, responsive, and citizen-focused in discharge of their duties, warning that corruption and misconduct will attract decisive sanctions.
I also want to make it clear that this administration will not tolerate corruption, high-handedness, incivility to public, any form of professional misconduct. Officers are expected to uphold the highest standards of professionalism, integrity, and accountability. I assure the public of my unwavering commitment to protecting lives and property, maintaining peace, and fostering people-friendly, law-abiding policing culture across Imo State.
As the new police leadership settles in, expectations remain high across Imo State for improved security and renewed commitment to public service, with authorities emphasizing that lasting peace will depend on strong collaboration between the police and the people. From Owerri, I'm Marachi Ibe, reporting for Global TB News.
The Nigeria Customs Service has stepped up efforts to strengthen regional trade, secure transit cargo, and deepen cross-border security cooperation with neighboring countries, particularly the Republic of Niger, as both nations move to tackle trade bottlenecks and shared security threats. The Controller General of Customs, Adewale Adeni, stated this in Abuja during a high-level bilateral meeting between the Nigeria Customs Service and the Niger Republic Customs Administration, led by its Director General, Muhammadu Yakuba. Kikelemo Kere has the details.
The meeting focused on improving the movement of transit goods bound for Niger through Nigeria, enhancing intelligence and information sharing, reducing delays along major trade corridors, and strengthening security cooperation across shared borders. Comptroller General of Customs Adewale Adeniyi says Nigeria remains committed to facilitating trade for landlocked neighbors, stressing that regional trade, security and stability are closely linked.
Is dedicated to doing everything possible to expedite clearance process and eliminate these complaints, provided that they do not compromise our national security and interests.
The custom boss also warned against the diversion of transit goods, saying strict sanction will be applied for operators who violate transit regulations, as such actions undermine trust and create non-tariff barriers to trade.
Putting in place very stiff penalties, very stiff sanctions and punishments for economic operators who divert goods that are in transit, that are meant for these landlocked countries, so that it will serve as deterrence to others.
The Director General of the Niger Republic Customs described the engagement as a working visit aimed at addressing pressing challenges, including prolonged blockage of transit trucks and rising security concern in the region. He noted that Niger Republic has intensified its counter-terrorism effort through coordinated security operations and the deployment of scanners to inspect all incoming cargoes.
Issues. He highlighted the challenges confronting the two customs administrations and the two countries of Nigeria and Niger in the area of terrorism and banditry. Believing that this forum will give the two custom administrations the opportunity to find lasting solutions to these challenges.
Also speaking, the National Coordinator, National Counter-Terrorism Center, Major General Garba Laka reaffirmed Nigeria's commitment to joint security action with Niger, describing insecurity in the Sahel as a shared threat that demands sustained cooperation.
For these agreements on a bilateral basis to be reactivated, if we want this security situation to be addressed.
The engagement marks a renewed push by Nigeria and Niger to strengthen trade facilitation, enhance border security, and deepen regional cooperation for mutual economic and security benefits. Kike Lomo Okere, Global Television News.
You're watching the live broadcast of News Express. News Express continues after this weather forecast, plus business, foreign, and sports stories on the other side of this break.
How hot is it going to be as we head into Saturday? Let's break it down. Temperatures remain generally high across the country, and yes, the heat is on. Yelwa in Kebbi State and Nguru in Yobe are expected to peak at 41 degrees Celsius, while Yola, Borno, and Sokoto State isn't far behind at 40 degrees Celsius. Feeling the heat already? So what should you expect where you are? If you are in the northern states, it's a sunny day ahead. Across the north central and parts of the southern cities, expect a partly cloudy skies. Not totally gloomy, but definitely worth keeping an eye on. Now let's talk about the rain. We're tracking developing rain clouds over the central areas with slim chances of thunderstorms affecting parts of the Federal Capital Territory and Niger State. This could kick off late tonight and stretch into early hours of Saturday. If you are in Ogun and parts of Lagos, don't be surprised if you wake up to morning thunderstorms. And as the day goes on, especially into the afternoon, thundery activities are expected over Plateau and Kaduna State, while several other areas should prepare for rain and thunder, including Kwara, Benue, Kogi, Ogun, Osun, Oyo, Imo, Ekiti, and all coastal cities. So here's the big question. Sun or rain where you are? Whichever it is, stay hydrated, stay alert, and stay weather ready.
Yeah, welcome back. We move to business issues, where the Central Bank of Nigeria has injected over 1.7 trillion naira into the banking system in the first week of February 2026 through repayments of maturing open market operations bills and other instruments. Data from the CBN say liquidity inflow was driven mainly by maturities rather than new injections, even as Apex Bank sustained its tight monetary stance to curb inflation and stabilize the naira. Despite the large headline figure, analysts note that funding conditions remain tight due to high interest rates and cautious liquidity management by banks. The Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission says the long-awaited review of Nigeria's revenue allocation formula is nearing completion following months of consultations and data analysis. This came as lawmakers scrutinized the 2026 budget proposals of key government agencies during a budget defense session at the National Assembly, where our correspondent Anette Patrick reports.
Appearing before the House of Representatives Committee on Finance, Chairman of the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, Dr. Mohammed Shehu, told lawmakers the commission had concluded its review of the remuneration of political office holders. He said the recommendations have been forwarded to the President through the Secretary to the government of the Federation. Dr. Shehu also disclosed that work on the vertical and horizontal revenue sharing formula is ongoing, with completion expected before the end of the year.
Remuneration of political office holders is completed. We have submitted through the SGF to Mr. President. We hope that very soon this thing will be transmitted to you so that it becomes law.
Meanwhile, the acting managing director of the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading PLC, MBET, Johnson Akinawu, attributed challenges in the company's 2025 budget implementation to low capital releases. But members of the committee raised concerns over MBET's spending priorities.
Every and all travels that you see that was funded there had either an SGF or head of service approval as required.
Out of 479 million naira, you spent 470 million for international travels. Why I'm worried about this expenditure is that you neglected the comfort of your residential building as against your international travel.
In a related presentation, the Federal Ministry of Finance proposed 14.3 billion naira 2026 budget also came under scrutiny over alleged inconsistency in its capital component. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edu, explained that the figure includes debt service items classified as capital expenditure by the Budget Office.
By Budget Office, they captured the debt servicing under that particular heading. So we would have to trace back as to why. So it is not part of our normal capital budget. It is actually debt servicing.
We're talking about revenue. We want to know the sources, what made up that revenue, and what, as against what targets.
The House Committee on Finance subsequently directed the ministry to return with its complete 2025 budget performance report before consideration of the 2026 proposal. From the National Assembly, Anette Patrick reporting for Global TV News.
A major power project meant to boost electricity supply, agriculture and flood control in Niger State has become the center of a fierce legal and policy battle pitching the federal government against a private power company at the National Assembly. The dispute over the proposed 360-megawatt Gurara 2 hydropower project was laid bare as both sides traded claims before the House of Representatives. National Assembly correspondent Anette Patrick again reports.
The multi-purpose project located along the Pauli-Jere Junction, Koloniga, Kampechang, axis of Niger State, is designed to deliver electricity, irrigation, flood control, fisheries, and tourism benefits within a federal irrigation corridor. At the hearing, the Federal Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation, represented by its minister, Professor Joseph Utsev, told lawmakers that technical feasibility studies carried out as far back as 2010 informed a selective procurement process. According to the ministry, the project was duly awarded to CGC Nigeria Limited, insisting that Abuja Power Company Limited only surface after procurement had already been concluded.
Following studies were carried out on the proposed project in different lots. The first one was the geotechnical studies. The second was the environmental impact assessment studies, irrigation services studies, hydrological studies, topographical survey.
But the Abuja Power Company Limited strongly disputed that position, led by senior advocates Oluwemi Okumbi and company director Professor George Momen. The firm argued that it conceived the Gurara 2 project as early as 2004 and secured a certificate of occupancy.
CGC Nigeria Limited for the development of the Gurara 2 multipurpose dam hydropower project contravenes the Public Procurement Act, the ICRC Act, and the regulations concerning unsolicited proposals.
Chairman of the House Committee handling the matter, Sada Soli, assured that all submissions and court documents would be carefully examined before any decision is taken.
Senate on the matter to enable the parties to sit down and look at the amicable way to resolve this matter in order to save this project in the interest of the country.
As lawmakers weighed the camps, the fate of one of Nigeria's key hydropower projects and billions of naira in investment now hangs in the balance. From the National Assembly, Aniete Patrick reporting for Global TV News.
Let's go to the foreign scene, where at least 31 people have been killed and more than 160 injured after a suicide bomber struck a mosque during Friday prayers in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad. Authorities say the attacker detonated an explosive device at the entrance of the mosque, prompting emergency responses and hospital alerts. The attack has been condemned globally, with investigations ongoing after the Islamic State group, ISIS, claimed responsibility for the deadly attack. And back home in sports, President Bola Tinubu has ordered the immediate release of all funds allocated to sports once the national budget is passed and signed into law. The president says delays in funding have undermined athletes' performance and placed Nigeria at a disadvantaged stage in international competitions. President Tinubu also directed key economic agencies to reset the sports funding framework starting from the 2026 fiscal year. And as Global TV News Express comes to an end, here is a recap of our top stories. We told you that Vice President Kashim Shettima has arrived in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, to condole with the government and people of the state over the deadly attack on Moro community in Kayama local government area, where dozens were killed and properties destroyed. And in business, the Central Bank of Nigeria injected over 1.7 trillion naira into the banking system in the first week of 2026 through repayments of maturing open market operations bills and other instruments. On the foreign scene, at least 31 people have been killed and more than 160 injured after a suicide bomber struck a mosque during Friday prayers in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad. And in sports, President Bola Tinubu has ordered the immediate release of all funds allocated to sports once the national budget is passed and signed into law. And that's it on News Express, but a quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms displaying on your screen using @GlobalTVNG. I am Show Said saying once again, good afternoon.